There's a difference between a believer and a seeker. You see, the believer has made a decision, but the seeker realizes he doesn't know. He's wide open, and that's why he's seeking. That's a quote by Sadhguru that perfectly describes this painting behind me and the journey that I've gone on to create. It's taken me over 5 years of research to get to the point of understanding these concepts, and it's important to realize that this painting is not about having all the right answers. Rather, it's about asking all the right questions. Because I'm not exactly sure at what point in my life that I realized I was a seeker, but I do remember realizing that the story just didn't add up. So a few things to remember or keep in mind as I go through the description of the symbology involved here. One, more blood has been shed in the name of God than anything else in history. And if you just think about the power of that statement for a second, what does that mean? So everybody's God that's all loving, that cares for everyone, that shares the same characteristics. Does that God want us killing our own people for it? And so when I thought about that concept very early on, I knew that something was up. And then also remember that the history was written by the winners. So if I conquered you and I wanted to write history the way that benefited me, it was very easily to omit and take out aspects that I didn't want in it. So if we didn't have things like the Dead Sea Scrolls or the Gnostic Gospels found in Nag Hammadi, some of these teachings, some of these stories would have never even come to light. So who knows how much is still deleted from history, who knows how much we still don't know. Because the one thing that I'm sure of after all of this is I still don't know anything at all. And that's okay, because there's beauty in the unknown. I don't think man is supposed to have a complete understanding of the biggest questions of life, why. But you come to a place where you're okay with the fact that you don't know. This is a personal journey. This painting functions as a series of dots to connect you. You could go for days on each concept. There's different teachings. It depends on how deep you want to dig. But this is a compilation of all these different aspects that can send you on a place that, at the end, hopefully, you'll come out with a better understanding, and not just a believer, but a seeker as well. The title of the painting is God of Son, Son of God. It is a not so subtle wordplay to let you know up front that we're talking about the same thing. The two central figures in the center of the composition illustrate this fact. On the left we have Jesus and on the right Osiris. The figure is split directly down the center, with one side seemingly morphing into the other. The concept of transference is when certain qualities of a previous civilization are adopted into the new regime to facilitate assimilation by the people. Rather than introducing entirely new ideas, they are a composite derived from what existed before and what will be instituted thereafter. The levels of similarities transfer between these. Let's begin with physical appearance. Both men are bearded with long hair. The Egyptian beard is ceremoniously plaited, and the headdress represents the long hair. Not many people know, but in the back it's actually tied into a ponytail. You don't really get to see the back so much. These decorative depictions were used in the hieroglyphs and on the sarcophagi of the kings. In those same depictions, Osiris is shown holding the shepherd's crook and flail. The concept of a shepherd symbolized the notion that a flock is in need of guidance, that they are blind and wandering listless with nowhere to go. Osiris was seen as the great shepherd of the human flock, who protects and guides to greener pastures. On the other side is the flail, which was used as a whip to keep the flock in line. Sometimes obedience does not come easy, and reinforcement was needed. Thus we have the great protector and the great enforcer, a symbolic reminder that there are consequences for not following the crowd. Blind sheep are much more desirable than ambitious creatures who have desires of finding their own way. These identical qualities were transferred to Jesus, who was also a shepherd and was often shown many times holding the crook. He's the way, the life, the truth. The only way to salvation is through him. He leads the flock. Furthermore, the God of the Old Testament is a flail personified. He brings a deluge where man has lost his way. The herd wandered, and the shepherd can't work with sheep that don't listen. The sun is the shepherd of the sky. And in essence, its flock is the stars. Therefore, the stars are herded around the sun. The major stars are arranged into constellations and represented by the 12 deities of each zodiacal sign. As the center of our solar system, the sun keeps them in line and organized throughout the great procession of the equinoxes as we pass through the ages, a cycle of roughly 2,150 years. Again, we see these qualities transferred into the 12 disciples of the Son of God, Jesus. Similarly to the stars, in regard to the solar sun, the 12 disciples also follow Jesus, literally and figuratively. So, he is the center of their universe. As the great shepherd, he keeps the flock on track. The 12 signs of the zodiac revolve around the sun, and the 12 disciples revolve around Jesus. We're taught that early man created stories to explain what he couldn't understand. Myths and gods were fabricated with elaborate plot lines complete with murder and scandal, and hundreds of gods were created for nearly every aspect of life. Universally, however, the solar qualities of fire were always attributed to the most powerful gods. Osiris is thus a very old, very powerful god who was worshipped dated thousands of years before the Common Era, and who was one of the most powerful gods ever devised. As time went on, he took on the attributes of countless other gods, and he became the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, as he was called in the Egyptian text. Osiris was successively god of the Nile, a life giver, a sun god, god of justice, god of love, and then finally a resurrected god who ruled in the afterlife. Osiris, or the sun god, was worshipped throughout the whole world under different names. Osiris was the most prominent of the 12 sons of Ra, the original Egyptian sun god. They were described as the 12 saviors of the treasure of life. Now, ironically, Jesus, when he left, entrusted the power of the word, the holders of the word, the disciples, and they were charged with spreading the word. In order to do so, they needed a branding identity. And here we have some of the earliest forms of marketing in action. So they took the Roman Catholic cross, borrowed from the earlier Egyptian Ankh, and what they got was a logo for this fledgling religion that borrowed from what was there previously to make it more acceptable for the here and now. And the entire painting is split down the middle and through the center in the shape of a cross. However, it doubles as an ankh at the top when you visually connect the sun to the shape. Instead of the straight pillar, it would be circular. On the left side, the three ornate shapes represent the Holy Trinity, Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, which was reinforced and instituted by the Vatican, which you see here in the background of the crucifix. Before any of that existed, however, there was the ankh, as shown on the right side. No opulent decoration needed. Its ancient origins are evident in the rudimentary shape and the cracking of the stone. During the reign of former Emperor Constantine, Christianity had already started to take a foothold in the empire, and he was forced to make a decision. Do I convert the entire empire, or do I risk losing the support of the populace? So, in a strategic move, he decided on the former, claiming to have a vision of God before battle, and using the experience as proof that Christianity was the right and true faith. He convened the Council of Nicaea to put together a book that would become the epicenter of the new religion. They chose exactly what to put in and exactly what to leave out. Even so, there still remained the dirty business of eradicating all of the unwanted texts. It's bad business to have conflicting material circulating amongst your target audience. The stage is now set for one of the darkest periods in human history, the Crusades. The Knights Templar, at the behest of the Vatican, ransacked Europe from shore to shore, pillaging and murdering and burning, robbing, stealing along the way. In the name of God, they destroyed most of the sacred information and ancient knowledge of the ancient esoteric mystery schools of Egypt. However, the people knew that these lessons could not be lost to history. They believed so much in their faith that somehow in the midst of the Crusades, somebody snuck out and went to the desert and buried their text. It's an unbelievable historic twist that they even survived. Consider how much may still be buried and how much is truly lost. The book of knowledge in the center of the painting represents the story behind the pages. It is an assembled collection of favorable books agreed upon by the ruling class. It was packaged to give people hope instead of fear. The Old Testament was included because that is a transference element. Many people worship the vengeful God of the Old Testament still. So rather than replace him or erase him, they just remixed it. Here's the New Testament Son of God, the new improved version. He doesn't get mad. He won't hurt you. And in fact, he sacrificed himself for you. All you needed to do was believe and you were granted the glory. It was conspicuously easy to gain converts for the new religion because of the silver platter there. Over time, as the replacements were passed down and the originals forgotten, the people started to hold up this book in adulation. In the center, it was pure, untouched, untainted. But as it branched out, it came in many different shapes and sizes, many different colors. Everything changed. And we've watched it grow into the biggest religion in the modern world. This is where it started. So at this point, the painting takes a turn when you realize that just a few short inches from the central figures, you have two more profiles. And they're the resulting consciousness of the dichotomy. One here, and one here. The left side is blindfolded. His understanding is blocked by the convoluted history of the contents of this side. The opposite is true for his counterpart. The right side is illuminated by clarity and understanding. The blindfold is removed, and in its place we have Orion. And the three kings of Orion's belt are featured in the center. And they're juxtaposed next to this nice scene of the pyramids of Giza. Not only are they built with the exact spacing and location that is identical to the constellation, but there also exists a date in history when they were perfectly aligned from the rock of the earth to the stars of the heavens. History wants you to believe it's just a coincidence. I'm too smart for that, and so are you. On the bottom corners, you see the recycled arrows forming a large triangle. The story literally goes in one mouth and out the other. What started pure ends up regurgitated, soaked with ulterior motives. It's akin to the childhood game of telephone. The story never makes it through unchanged. And as it's passed down over time, the more manipulated it becomes, and it becomes increasingly impossible to find truth because it's either been forgotten or purposely believed. At the top, the crook and the flail related to Jesus and Osiris, but at the bottom, they take on a different meaning as the compass and square of Freemasonry. You see, The truth was never forgotten, it was just protected. The people were weaned into forgetting the truth on purpose. Blind sheep led astray. All the while, through the annals of history, the secrets went underground into initiated circles, like Freemasonry. Here's the kicker. The one requirement to be a Freemason is a belief in God. And it doesn't matter which one. Just acknowledge the existence of a supreme being who they call the Grand Architect. It's important to realize they're not bad. They're not evil. They're not satanic. That's all propaganda. Because wouldn't it make sense that the church's greatest enemy are the holders of the truth? It's no wonder Masons are not welcome in churches. They're shunned by the cloths. These things have gotten better in the present day, but for the most part, that shouldn't be, and it's backwards. They intend good. In fact, in a way, they see themselves as a collective shepherd. Instead of one iconic individual, the community functions as that. Their goal is to build a great man. Similarly, the Order of the Eastern Star seeks to build a great woman. Unfortunately, it's a belief that the truth is not for everyone, that it's hard to comprehend. And they're doing us a favor in keeping it safe, keeping it secret. No one has all the right answers. The highest degree of Freemasonry is the 33rd degree, and it's represented by a double-headed phoenix. The symbolic meaning of its two heads is the balance of light and dark in the universe. This is a huge tenet of the Masons, and the two pillars on which the right is built are Joachim and Boaz, also seen at the bottom, towards the center here. The moon and the sun are shown in each one, also, again, representing and reinforcing the balance. One cannot exist without the other. They are both necessary. They are both dependent on each other, and there's beauty in both. Taking a step back for a second, let's recall one of the most shared and relevant characteristics between Jesus and Osiris, and that's the resurrection. Jesus, we know, was resurrected by himself, but often in Christian pictography, his soul was depicted as a dove after the resurrection. Now, it's quite interesting that Osiris, mind you, the older and more original god, was also resurrected, and he came in the form of a Bennu. And a Bennu is the ancient name for what we would know as a phoenix. The mythical creature is a symbol of rebirth, rejuvenation, new life, and often in Egyptian art, Osiris is consistently shown next to the Bennu at his side, which represented his rule in the afterlife as the resurrected god. Interesting enough, the highest ascension in Freemasonry is celebrated with the phoenix. A great deal of the knowledge learned reinforces the idea of a man letting his ego die. If he is reborn and illuminated, he comes back an enlightened individual. In fact, the entire initiation ceremony of the first degree is reenacting the murder of Hiram Abiff at the building of King Solomon's temple. The initiate dies and is resurrected. Now, bringing everything full circle, let's re-examine the pages of the book. They form a double-headed phoenix. So the feathers are here, the curve of the neck, the eye, the beak, the feathers, eye, beak, and the neck, which also form the lips for the two profiles of the dichotomy. You see, these pages should have been filled with this knowledge. The Templars, because of the Vatican, made sure that they weren't, and the Masons are privy to this. They celebrate the achievement of the highest degree with this image, and I know that the resurrection is one of the core beliefs of Christianity. But with all due respect, it's not an original concept. It's a hybrid account formed from earlier periods of history that have been inverted, manipulated, just like the hidden phoenix here, inverted inside of its pages. At the center of the painting, we see the sacred feminine represented in the form of Isis. She's the part of the original Trinity that was replaced, substituted for by the Holy Spirit. See, the original Trinity is Osiris, Isis, and their son Horus. In my opinion, this is the most glaringly obvious element that tipped me off for my own journey of seeking the truth. Because how does she get due respect in other places but not here? Mother country, mother ship, motherland, mother nature. She can literally birth your gods, but she can't wear your cloth. And that's what I mean about asking the right questions. How can that be? Well, you apply common sense and you analyze the situation. You say, what's man's greatest weakness? And it's a beautiful weakness. It's not a problem. I say it with the utmost respect and reverence. Woman is our greatest weakness. Behind every great man, they say, is a great woman. But the essence of a woman, the nurturing of a woman, the love of a woman is the epitome of perfection in our existence. So there's a reason why most men are intimidated by a strong, confident woman. That's the natural order of the universe. You see, Egypt, it's not Egypt. Egypt is what we call it. Egypt is Kemet. And before the dynastic families, there's 50,000 years of human history. Kemet was a matriarchal society. We're led to believe that it's a patriarchal society because of the pharaohs. But the pharaohs in Kemet were the female. And so when a man wore a headdress, it was considered a great honor because he had showed the characteristics of the queens. In dynastic Egypt, human corruption had already occurred. You see, because she's our greatest weakness, and because the winners wrote history, most of the time it was probably the stronger hand of the man that wrestled away the pen to document, to write the laws, to establish status in society. And after thousands of years, as recent as the 60s, you have female authors using pen names as men just to get accepted. There's 50,000 years of human history before those dynasties. That's what's hidden. That's the big secret. You know, we're not products of Darwinist evolution. We're much greater than that. We're gods who were forgotten in heaven. Let that sink in. So, if we're gods, then we live in heaven. And it's not where we'll end up, but where we already are. That's Gnosticism in a nutshell, but even they get it wrong. See, it's a cycle of inclusion and exclusion because they say only some people have the light. Some people are from the gods. Others are left by the wayside. That's not pure. What's pure is the earth, Mother Nature, the bringer of all life. She gives birth to our people and to our planet. The sacred feminine. On the top right, we see this pattern of concentric circles. It's sacred geometry called the flower of life, also called the Vesica Pisces. Notice the highlighted inner areas. That original pagan nature-based form was transferred into what we know as the Jesus fish, using archaic marketing, and now they have a new logo. But what that really is a zodiacal age. The age of Jesus was the age of Pisces. That's the age we were in. And it was marked by the age of Jesus. Now, I say that we were in because everyone recalls the Mayan 2012 prediction of the end and the promise of a new age of enlightenment. Well, the age of Pisces ended in 2012, not the world. So it's time to dust off these words, bring these things to light, because it's over now. That time's over. We need to be in this new age of enlightenment, and that's part of the reason why I put this painting together, why I've taken so much time on the concept and the symbology involved, because our true potential is so magical. The world really is a magical place. And we've forgotten who we really are. In Avatar, they plugged into the planet. That's not Hollywood. That's real life. The pyramids were not built by slaves. They were built by highly trained scientists schooled in the esoteric teachings of the ancients. Civilizations that were there way before we can even fathom. No matter where you start though, and no matter how far you go back, it doesn't matter what culture, what civilization, you arrive at two things. You're going to end up with sound resonance and water. The pyramids basically were power plants. They organically separated water into gases. The gases pumped up to the top, rejoined, and then became the conduit to channel the static energy down to the queen chamber and then tap it. That's how they lit the lighthouse at Alexandria. That's why there's light bulbs in Egyptian hieroglyphs. They had wireless electricity years ago. We've been brainwashed to think that human evolution is linear. Because we're 2014 humans, that we must be smarter and more advanced than ancient humans. This could not be more untrue. Everything moves in cycles, in concentric circles. Everything is a great repetition of a cycle, and the fact is, we're severely hindered in our present state of consciousness. We're not even close to the capacity that these people understood of science, astrology, all these different things. And to show you, Nikola Tesla recreated and proved this technology at the World's Fair. He created free electricity out of thin air. And JP Morgan, he can't sell that. So he pulled the funding and Tesla faded away. Sound was used to build the pyramids. The sound wave in the top left is essential to understanding all of this. You can run the whole gamut and you will not find a concept or an aspect of this that is more important than sound resonance. Sounds can levitate rock, boil water, and recently the scientific community has finally admitted that it moves faster than the speed of light. There's a reason for chants, songs, hymns, and oral traditions. There's a reason why the Quran is sung in verse. It's deeper than it sounds good. You see, it sounds good because it's divine. We are all plugged into the same megahertz. We all run on the same wavelength. So sound connects us all. Edward Lee Scallinan built the Coral Castle in Florida using sound resonance. This small, older gentleman with no modern tools, no machinery, and no assistance built modern-day pyramids of huge rocks by himself. And he did it with sound. The Toltecs teach that the word is your power. It's part of the Four Agreements, ancient wisdom, but what it says is that's what separates us. You know what I mean? That's what separates us from everything else that's out there. The sound that we can make and communicate is such a special thing. So they teach you not to waste your word, use it for good. Don't speak in waste. Yet we fall silent when it comes to spirituality. We don't talk about it. It's only whispered about in back rooms or amongst the closest friends in intimate environments. But we're not using our power if we ain't talking. And if we ain't talking, we ain't communicating. And nobody can understand. So that's why I come in as the artist. Because art has an ability to build a bridge where words fall short. This might be uncomfortable to you to talk about. But if you see it together and you share it together, I've circumvented the words. That's what art should do, you know. It should invoke emotion, ignite the conversation, and become a catalyst for change. In summary, This painting is not, as I said a few times, about having all the right answers. It's about asking all the right questions. I don't propose to have it all figured out, but I do know what is false. I do know that if we don't do something soon, it's going to be too late. I do know that we're eating each other from the inside out. But on the inside is the key. And so, spirituality is an individual journey, a personal experience. You move at your own pace. But don't just be a believer. Don't just accept it. You're being a blind sheep being led. Be a seeker. Be tenacious in your search for truth. My truth might be different than your truth. It's a personal experience. Don't accept the remnants. Seek the source. That's the key to unlocking it all. And we look at the painting again and notice the entire composition also forms a keyhole.